Jason, and this week is going to be a solo cast. So to start, I figured I should just give an update. It's been a couple months since we posted a podcast, and I guess I should explain why. The main reason just came down to scheduling. Over the summer, Steve's schedule got busy. He was definitely much busier with work. I had a little bit more stuff going on over the summer. Daughter's out of school, things like that. And we just weren't able to get our schedules to line up to record on a weekly basis, unfortunately. Steve and I don't live super close. He's in Long Island, New York, and I'm in New York City. Actually, I'm in Yonkers, just north of the city. And it can be about an hour and a half, up to even 2 hours to get to each other based on traffic. And this is New York, so traffic is always something that we have to deal with. We tried messing around with recording some podcasts over the phone, and there was a couple technical difficulties there. We actually had one that I wasn't able to get edited properly, so it was never uploaded. It kind of just got scratched. So moving forward, I'm going to hold myself to this, and I said this in the past, and I apologize for not doing it, but this is going to be a weekly podcast. Every week, there will be a new episode. Sometimes that means, like today, it's going to be a solo podcast. There may be times even where we have a guest co-host, and then me and Steve are going to work on scheduling, hopefully as much as we can, where we still get to do them together. And that's kind of where we've been and where we're going moving forward. Real quick before we get started and jump into too much more content, just kind of an update. I've been working on, again, being more consistent with the Instagram. So if you'd like to follow, it's just Golo Auto on Instagram. Every Friday, we're going to be doing something called Feature Friday, where I'm going to ask the same set of questions to a different follower, and we're going to give them a little bit of a platform to stand out, and we're going to give them just an in-depth shout-out. And the goal with this is I want to build a community. Go Low is supposed to be about respecting all builds, and part of that is we need to get to know each other, and we need to all know each other's builds. And I'd like to build a spot, and I'd like to build a community in Go Low where we can, become an online car culture, and we can hopefully moving forward maybe even have a forum or some avenue to communicate. But for now, just through IG and even on the Facebook page, that still exists. And like I said, I'd like to build a community, a supportive community, a positive community, to get advice, to show off our builds, to ask for, tips or tricks with certain stuff, and really just to love cars and to be a positive spot to talk about cars. So like I said, if you want to head over to Golo Auto on IG, you can DM me there. If you'd like to be one of the Feature Fridays, we just did our first Feature Friday a few days ago. It seemed to go over pretty well, and I've already got a couple people interested for the next couple weeks. They're lined up. I got to send them out the questions and get that all set up. So if you'd like to take that spot in the future, like I said, just DM me on Golo Auto's IG. And to start off, right away, I'd like to just jump into automotive news because I saw an article that I found pretty interesting the other day, and it had to do with the famed Toyota Supra. It has officially been announced that at the Detroit Auto Show in January in 2019, which is just a couple months away, the Toyota Supra will be there. They're saying it's going to be a 2019 Toyota Supra, but there's no details yet as to when it's going to be available for sale. So I don't know if it's going to be a 2019 or 2020 model in terms of when you can actually buy it. But this is exciting to me for the fact that there's about 20 years of hype that we've been building up to this car. The Mark IV Supra is probably one of the most famous import cars, thanks largely to the fact that it was the lead car in the initial Fast and Furious movie. Paul Walker made that very famous when he promised a 10-second car, and that was the whole build of the movie, was the Supra and the famous line against the Ferrari, and it became such an infamous car. And I believe I'm accurate when I think Toyota said in 1998 is when they stopped selling in the US. I believe it continued to be sold worldwide until the early 2000s, maybe '01 or '02. But I'm almost positive they stopped selling it in the US in 98. So that means we have 20 years of hype and waiting for this car. And we've seen over the last couple years, we've seen some versions of it. We've seen spy photos. The joke has kind of been that this is the worst kept secret in the automotive world, is that the Supra is coming. Everyone's kind of seen it. Everyone knows it's supposedly coming. But it's also it's almost become this mythical thing of, okay, it's coming next year. No, it's not coming next year. Is it coming next year? No, it's not coming next year. So now, supposedly, again, this isn't the first time we've heard this, but I think the wait is finally over. We do have some details about it. It's going to be a straight six, but not a JZ. They've actually partnered with BMW on this particular car. So it's going to be a straight six. I think it's going to be somewhere in the 335 horsepower range. It's also going to have a turbo four-cylinder available, supposedly. That's going to be somewhere in the mid 200 horsepower range. I've read 265, I believe. Neither of these numbers blows me away. The 265 for a four-cylinder isn't bad. 330-ish for a straight six isn't terrible either, but also in 2019, moving into 2020, these aren't crazy performance specs. We'll have to see the actual numbers in terms of how the car does, but from a horsepower standpoint, this isn't a crazy amount. Again, this will come down to price. It's a little underwhelming, but the FRS in 2012, I felt the same way, where I was very excited that Toyota was going back to a rear-wheel drive platform, a sports car, because Toyota has kind of just become known for family sedans. The FRS was a great platform. It was great for drifting. There have been some amazing builds, but power-wise, it was definitely underwhelming, and it seemed disappointing that they didn't have a turbo variant, since for that car, they teamed up with Subaru, who already had a turbo variant in the WRX and the STI. I mean, the STI is a pretty impressive performance numbers for the engine, and it just seemed like the perfect opportunity and the perfect platform to launch that, and they just didn't. I'm hoping that this Supra is not as underwhelming performance-wise as the FRS was. It has a lot of hype to live up to. We have 20 years of speculating when it would come back, what it would be like when it came back. The Mark IV was an absolute monster, so it's some big shoes to fill, honestly. I can't wait till January. I'm very excited to see what it looks like in non-camouflage spy photos. I'm very curious to read more about what the price points are going to be, what the performance specs are looking like. I think it's very exciting that Toyota is getting back into performance. Even the Camry and the Avalon have impressive horsepower numbers now in their V6. They came out with a hot hatch. They made the Corolla a hatch with a available manual 6-speed transmission. It's awesome to see Toyota moving this direction, because I feel like for the past 20 years, they've been very stale. They obviously found a market, and they were obviously profitable. Toyota makes a fantastic car. They have an amazing reputation for reliability. They have an amazing reputation for, holding their value in their cars, and they make a great car. It's just they made great, boring cars. They've sported up the Camry. I think it's the XSE is the top sport model with the V6 and somewhere around 300 horsepower. It's a good-looking car. It's a good-looking sports sedan. It's very welcome to me. Overall, I'd say I'm very excited and hopeful, but I'm also preparing myself to be a little disappointed. I feel like this has the potential to end up like the NSX. The Acura NSX is an amazing car. It's a very good-looking car. They've got amazing technology in it. It's performs very well, especially for the price point compared to its competitors. But it was kind of a letdown because there was a decent gap there where we just heard hype about it. At one point, they were saying it was going to be a V10 to compete with Lamborghini and Ferrari, and we ended up with a twin-turbo V6 and some electric motors. And I think it was 2017's Road and Track like top performing car. It's a great car, but I don't think it's selling that well because it didn't quite live up to the hype, and it didn't quite match up with the original NSX. It doesn't bear really any resemblance to the original, and I think that that's my fear with this Supra. From the spy photos, it doesn't look. The Mark III to the Mark IV was a huge change in the Supra world, but you could kind of follow the lines. This Mark V, I think it's what I'm assuming it'll end up being called, even though the chassis is an A90. With Supras, everyone seemed to go by Mark. The Mark III and IV most notably. But I just don't know. I don't know where this is going to fall. Again, I'll end with this subject by saying that I'm hopeful. I'm excited. I can't wait for January to see what this is really all about. But I'm also preparing myself to be slightly disappointed. And moving on from there, talk a little bit about my own car. As I mentioned in previous podcasts, I got rid of my daily, which was a 2016 Kia EX. It was a great car for what I needed it for at the time, but I wanted to get into something that was more moddable, was a little bit more of a fun platform. So I ended up with a 2006 Infiniti G35X, and I've had the car since August, and I absolutely love it. Not the best on gas. She's a little thirsty, but I'm okay with that. I'm now getting to a point where I want to start thinking about, the initial mods I want to do. I'm kind of been torn between the ideas of starting with some suspension mods or starting with something performance or just sound related. And I've kind of narrowed it down to 3 or 4 choices for my first mod. I could go with a suspension mod and lower it. I couldn't currently swing coilovers. I just don't have that in the budget right now. I could save up for it. But in the meantime, I could just go with some springs. The real budget version of this is just putting stock 350C springs in it, and you get a little bit of a drop. I would probably go with some aftermarket springs and knock out some of this wheel gap. Now, granted, the wheel gap on this car is not nearly as bad as the Kia was in stock form. That one I ended up dropping probably close to 3 inches to get rid of all of the wheel gap, and I loved the way that looked. I would probably only need about 2 inches on the G35 to be pretty low and low enough to keep me happy. But I also, as I've mentioned before, I absolutely love the VQ and the way it sounds. I think it's one of the best sounding V6s. I've said that multiple times. I've repeated it probably too much. You guys may be sick of hearing that, but I kind of want to start with something exhaust related for that reason, because I absolutely love the way the VQ sounds. Now, even stock, I love the way the VQ sounds. I think that my car sounds great as is, but I would like to accentuate that a little bit and make it sound even better. So even here, just in terms of exhaust, I have a few options. I could start with a catback. I was also considering going with an electronic cutout to really get to the ability to be loud and a little bit crazy when I want to, and then also at the push of a button be able to dial it down to stock. That may be the way I'm leaning right now, but then I also have the super budget option, kind of like the 350Z springs, or the budget option of suspension. I could go with a muffler delete and get rid of the rear muffler and just replace it with a straight pipe for pretty cheap, and that would be very doable. The downside on the budget end is going to be that there's a very real chance that with a muffler delete, it could get a little droney on the highway. Now, I'm not necessarily ruling that out. I have had cars that droned on the highway before. My SRT4 was pretty much 3-inch straight pipes. It had a high flow cat, but that was it. It was a 3-inch downpipe and 3-inch pipes after the high flow cat. And that tended to drone a fair amount on the highway. But even that was doable. It wasn't so awful. Now, granted, I'm at a different point in my life now. I do have a daughter that rides in the car with me very often, and I'm not sure how much she would love having to yell over exhaust. I don't know how excited she would be about that. But I don't think just a muffler delete is going to be enough to drone to that level where it's unenjoyable. So I'm kind of torn there. I think either this week after this podcast is out or next week I'm going to make a post on Facebook and IG, and I'm going to make it a poll, and I would love to get some input. If anyone has a VQ, I would love to hear from them on what route they took in terms of exhaust. I know I'm going to talk to Steve more about it because he's had the 350Z since 2004. So he's, kind of heard all the options in terms of exhausts on the VQ. But I'm curious also to hear from other people. Like I said, I want to make this a community, so I'm going to make a post, and I would love to hear what you guys are planning to do for builds this winter. I know for me, winter always kind of turned into when I did most of my wrenching. In the summer, I just wanted to drive. I didn't want to be bothered with taking the car out of commission potentially for a couple days, or sweating my butt off and working on the car in the summer. When I had free time, I just wanted to drive it. So the winter always turned into project time. So as we're approaching winter, I'd love to hear what you guys are working on, what mods you think you're going to do to your car, or if you're building a car this winter, strictly just a build and it's not your daily. I would love to hear about that too. So I will make a post about that, and I'd love for you guys to join in. And I think that's probably going to be about it for this week. I'm just trying to get back into this podcasting mode. And like I said, this is going to be a weekly thing. There will be a podcast every week. This one is going up tonight, and it is currently Monday, November 5th, so I can be held to that. This will be live in just a couple hours. And next Monday, there will be another podcast, and it's going to be a weekly thing from here on out. I want to thank you guys for sticking with me. I know it's been a little bit inconsistent over the past couple months, and that's on me, and I'm holding myself accountable, and I'm getting everything in order, and I'm making sure that I make the time for this, because I do want to grow this community, and I want to make a positive community for us to all partake in. That's the ultimate goal here. Really long term, I would love to hold some events here locally in New York, and potentially in other locations. If I can get this community to that point, I would absolutely love to do that. I still have this store at shopgoloauto.com. That's actually going to be getting revamped here this week. I have a whole bunch of new sticker designs and hopefully a couple new t-shirt designs as well. I'm still working those out, but the stickers will definitely be live by next week. That's pretty close to ready. I just have to finish up a couple things there in terms of the designs. But again, check us out on Facebook, IG, the website. I'd love to hear from all you guys. Like I said, we're going to be looking for people for the Feature Friday posts, and get excited about hearing from some guest hosts as well. And hopefully Steve will be back with us in the next episode or two. And I will talk to you guys later. Have a good one.